I'll never eat at White Castle again.
I know, everyone got diarrhea and sick.
The one guy go in the tub?
No, I don't think so.
This is not what people want to listen to. So
This is the spooky part of the dookie.
I would say it would be the dookie part.
You had the opportunity, Gordo, to get the dookie joke in, and you fucking blew it.
50-50 to get that right or wrong, and somehow the coin flipped the proper rest of us.
What did I say wrong?
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Stark Raving Mad. Stark Raving Mad went 22 episodes with only one season on NBC. Today we're talking about episode 1, which is called Pilot, originally airing September 23rd, 1999. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, the boys, Joe, Ferg, Nick, and Gordo. What's going on, guys?
Hey-o.
Yo.
There are naked pictures of you on the internet? I didn't Google it. Probably should have Googled it. Should we see if there's naked pictures of Tony Shalhoub online?
You can,
I'm on it.
not incognito.
I will incognito. How dare you?
While you guys are doing that, I want to welcome everybody to our 4th annual, unofficially named Spooky Dookie October, where for the entire month of October, we're going to do Halloween-ish related shows. Anything kind of falls into that horror, science fiction kind of, realm. 4 years in, it's getting tough to find some, but we're good this year, and I think we got a lot of next year too. We already have plans, so I don't know how much longer we can do it for, but we get at least next year.
I'm sure the fans can help us out.
Spooky dookie.
Yeah, if you have shows that you think fit into that genre, by all means, let us know.
Update. I cannot find a nude photo of Tony Shalhoub.
I'm sorry.
You mean a Tony nude?
Right, so this week we're starting off with Stark Raving Mad, which is the Tony Shalhoub, Neil Patrick Harris show from 1999 that I did not know existed. Did you guys know anything about this at the time?
No clue.
No, because nobody cared about NPH yet. It was way before. This was after Doogie and before How I Met Your Mother.
Well, here's the thing. To talk about how much TV has changed. This episode, when it premiered, 18.62 million viewers. The entire season averaged 15.5 million.
Networks will fucking kill for those numbers now. This show got those numbers and won a People's Choice Award, and they still canceled it and didn't even air the whole season. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And they were like, no, this show's doing terrible. We can axe it.
And one thing I would like to point out, this doesn't happen very often, but there are 2 cast members from Addams Family Values in this TV show, and that is something worth celebrating on Spooky Dookie Month.
How many from Mantis?
No Mantis characters. I looked. I thought maybe some of the peripherals would be, but we just keep striking out on Mantis.
When was the last time we hit on Mantis?
We've never hit on Mantis.
You have to we've talked about it. You have to reverse engineer it. You got to go to the actors and then see what they've done. And that'll be the best way to go about it.
That's not sporting, Jason.
Yeah, I want to find it organically.
Well, if you guys ever want to have Mantis Month.
Mantis May!
We cover 4 random 1-hour episodes of Mantis. Like, what are you guys doing?
But yeah, with this one, it's funny. I mean, it's no secret for those of you guys who've been listening to us for a while. We're all wrestling fans. In the height of wrestling, which is right around this time, like 1 year prior, the 2 major wrestling companies combined weren't doing in a night what this show is averaging. So it's like, and this was wrestling in its biggest time when the whole world was watching. Meanwhile, this show is doing over 15 million viewers a week and no one even knows it exists. Like, how do these numbers work?
Yeah. And it's the lead-in from Frasier too. You have like one of the biggest sitcoms of all time as your lead-in. Like, it just the head of the book publishing company is a Frasier character, right? But there are people from that show on this show too. Like, it makes no sense to me that this didn't work.
So what was on? So Frasier was on before this?
Yeah.
That's probably why it was so successful. It just had the layover audience.
I'm sure it helped, yeah.
Well, back then, too, it was either read a book, watch TV, or stare at the wall.
That's it?
Yeah.
Go outside. But yeah, these are like, I get it, like Thursday night television or whatever.
I mean, it was entertainment was just different back then. It hit different, as the kids say.
And this one, I said 22 episodes. That was the full season. Only 18 actually made it to air in its first run. And then I think through syndication and release afterwards, the full 22 came out.
Was there actually a syndication of a one-season show?
I don't know if it had like syndicate, it didn't say, there's not a lot of information on this show. It just said in its original run, which I flagged my ear because the whole season is available somehow. So it had me thinking it must have had some sort of limited syndication.
Peacock.
Weird too.
It's
not on Peacock, but it should be, right? Because they own it, and now Tony Shalhoub and Neil Patrick Harris are way more popular than they were at the time of this. I mean, they just made a new Monk movie last year.
For those of you who are listening right now who want to be able to watch the show, you can find it on YouTube. So most of this season, if not all of it, is available on YouTube. So you can go ahead and watch it there.
It is not optimal quality, though.
No. Sometimes you got to take the hits on those ones. But it is there if you want to watch it. And then another quick reminder, S1E1pod.com is where you can go to find all our merch, our links to our social medias, where to listen to us, all that stuff, so on and so forth. Be sure to subscribe, do all those things because it kind of just helps boost our numbers. And then additionally, if you follow us on social media at S1E1pod, shoot us a message, say hi, how you found us, anything like that. We like talking to you guys. So go ahead and do that.
Also, if anybody posts a picture of themselves in a S1E1 themed costume of any sort for Halloween, we will send you out some things.
Yeah, we gotta organize some sort of a Halloween giveaway.
If I get anybody send me a picture of them as Casper Jackson, I don't know what I'll send you, but I will send you some things.
It's gonna be not a picture of Tony Shalhoub's dick.
No, we can't find that.
What if someone can find a picture of Tony Shalhoub's dick? Can they win that way?
I can send you the lawsuit I'm assuming will be coming our way if we push that into the internet.
And then the only other thing I want to mention too before we get started is IMDb had this at an 8.1. It was over 800 reviews too, so not out of just a few. And then Rotten Tomatoes had nothing.
I'm shocked an older show has that many reviews.
That kind of surprised me more than anything, just because a lot of times we see skewed numbers on the more rare older shows because only so many people are reviewing. But that's a good amount of reviews for a forgotten show
crazy.
From 25 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, with one season that didn't even fully air.
It's gonna be all the NPH fans.
Probably now. I mean, people just between the two of them, that's probably how it's finding any light. Is just people searching them and finding it by accident.
So again, Peacock put it on.
You would think.
Yeah.
It's probably tougher now because they have to have with the new collective bargaining they did. They have to pay them, and now they're bigger stars. So for a show that might not do too well on Peacock, that's paying them a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know how any of that stuff works, but
one thing I was just thinking of too is you always see these TV shows hit the issue when they have a lot of music in them. I don't know if it's a running gag that Tony Shalhoub plays a famous song in every episode, but you're gonna have to pay the guys for this episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, yeah, we don't know, but that definitely seems to be a thing about the character that we find out. So, well, yeah, with all that in mind, we might as well get into the actual episode itself. The show starts with Henry. Henry is played by Neil Patrick Harris. We learn he's a book editor, and we see him when he's walking into his boss's office. And when he's walking inside, his boss is talking to an author, a fictional author named Jonathan Dalton.
Stanley DeSantis too, the actor. He's in a million things. He's in Boogie Nights. He's in Ed Wood. He's in Candyman. Ferg. He's one of those guys you see and you're like, oh, I know that guy.
Is he? Hold on, sorry, I meant to look this up earlier and I forgot. Is he the guy who, if you've seen the Ocean's movies?
Yes.
Is he the guy who they end up torturing because he's reviewing the hotel?
Yes.
Don't say yes if you don't know, Gordo.
I do know. Yeah, it's 100%.
Gordo doesn't understand that the people listening don't know that you're kidding sometimes, and they'll just take that as fact.
Okay, no, it's not him because this guy died before that movie even came out. So,
R.I.P.
Yeah, the dude from the Ocean's movie, wasn't that the guy from Carpool? The dad?
God, I haven't seen Carpool in so long. They look a lot alike. Joe, did you just say you haven't seen the Ocean's movies?
I've seen the original with Frank Sinatra, the one from 1960, but I've never seen the modern ones now.
You gotta watch them, man. They're fun.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to watch them. They just never sort of...
They're amazing movies.
They're my once a year. I'll watch the three of them in one sitting.
I mean, I like the original a lot. I know it's pretty much the same premise, so I would give the new ones a watch. I'll put that on the list. I'll add them.
What about the lady one?
It's not good.
It's not terrible.
It's not. No, I hate the the story they chose to use was so poorly written.
I wonder if Bernie Mac didn't die, if they'd be on like Ocean's 34 right by now.
Yeah, I think they were all just too big of actors. Like it was tough
They
to
were
like
big
nail them
actors
all
then.
down.
I mean, it's a big expense to get that many in an ensemble cast, you know?
Yeah, and when you have to pay that many people, it's like the amount of money the movie has to make for it to be worth it when you like put that much towards your
Yeah.
paying the actors.
I'm sure in 10 years or 15 years, we'll get another one that goes directly to a streamer.
Can't without Bernie Mac.
To get back into this, Henry's walking in and he sees the two of them talking. He's like, "Oh, sorry to bother you." And then he notices Jonathan Dalton and he's like so like in awe because he's like such a, you know, like a big author within their, you know, world. And he goes to give him a hand. He's like, "Usually I don't shake hands during flu season, but I'm such a fan of your books. It's an honor." And you see him like pull out like the little hand sanitizer and he like cleans his hands up. And you get like the return with Dalton also pulling out his hand sanitizer. It's funny to go back to 99 where like, not that like no one knew what hand sanitizer was, but they felt the need to explain what it was on air.
Right.
So it probably wasn't that popular.
I was surprised, honestly, to see that the little bottle of it, like
Yeah.
in 1999. I know obviously it's been around, but I figured that was like a relatively new gimmick for the hand sanitizer industry.
I mean, post-COVID now, too. I mean, like, there's just, like, containers everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I got them in my car, my bag.
Do you know what I was thinking about the other day? I used a porta potty, which, you know, you don't have... It's not a thing you look for, right? Sometimes it randomly happens. We were like, apple picking, and I was like, oh, I have to go pee. I'll use this. They only had porta potties or whatever. And they had the little pump for hand sanitizer, because you really can't have, like, a sink in there, right? And I was like, I don't remember these being inside of porta potties, like, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, if you're at, like, the carnival or whatever, you're just like, there was nothing in there back then. And
you know why I'm like
gnarly.
very thankful for that? It's not just about the sanitizing in general, but one thing I've learned going to like many like long concerts or fairs or things that are like all day, the cleaning staffs aren't always 100% on top of like replacing all the things in there. So sometimes the soap isn't present anymore or any like water or anything. So that sanitizer is a nice little backup plan to at least try to clean your hand a little bit.
Did you see the video? We might have talked about this recently, actually. I can't remember. But somebody, like, it was like a festival or whatever, and there's like a hand sanitizer, like one of those like stand-up ones, just like in a common area. And someone replaced it. Someone replaced the hand sanitizer with mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
watched people smear mayonnaise all over themselves.
And in fairness, clearly put a sign up saying that it was mayonnaise and even warned some people before they did it, and they still just weren't paying attention.
Goddamn savages.
Oh, that's so
I would be
gross, though.
so fucking mad if I thought
Yeah, furious.
I would obviously be pissed, but I also think it's hilarious. So
What
I don't
is
know.
that?
Wait, it was just in a hand sanitizer like dispenser?
Yeah, it's like in the pump. So they pumped
Yeah.
under the thing and then mayonnaise came out.
it's a real goo-goo boys.
A little jizz of mayonnaise.
It would take so long to like realize too, because you'd be rubbing it in for a while and realize it's not disappearing.
Well, no. If you were expecting hand sanitizer, you know exactly what that looks and smells like. Well, you'd get about 2 seconds into smearing mayonnaise on you and be like, that's mayonnaise. It's a pretty distinct smell.
You never think you have a cut on your hand, and then you put hand sanitizer on, and you're like, oh, there was many little cuts I did not know about that are now screaming.
Oh my
I thought you were going to
cuticles.
say I put mayonnaise on my hands and then I find all my cuts.
That's how I search them out, yeah. It's my nighttime routine.
It is without a doubt in my mind, out of all of us, I don't think anyone would like react favorably, but I think Gordo would react the way you'd want him to react. Like he would have the most animated.
What the fuck?
I could see Gordo like starting to get ready to swing on somebody for that.
He goes to punch the sanitizer, but just gets covered in mayonnaise.
I'd cup it and throw it at someone.
See, that's the wrong reaction because you don't know who the person is. And if you throw mayonnaise at some random person, then you're just as bad as the mayonnaise.
No, but Gordo doesn't care, though. See, that's an interesting thing about Gordo. He's not looking to get the person who did it. He just wants to make sure everybody else is as miserable as he is. So he's just going to throw mayonnaise at everyone.
No doubt in my mind, he would take it out on the actual dispenser and then hit it and get more mayonnaise on himself and then
just
freak
said
out
that,
even more.
yeah.
It's like without a doubt in my mind.
And then get arrested.
to add a destruction of property charge to it too. It's like you owe a $17.50 for this little plastic stand you broke.
But he slips out of the cuffs because he's covered in mayonnaise.
Oh.
So the power slide away.
Is this fucking mayonnaise?
That's one of those things though you might get let go because the cops don't want to put you in their backseat covered in mayonnaise. You ever watch an episode of Cops where it's like a naked guy who's like pistol over themselves and they're always just like, I don't know, do we just fucking shoot this guy? Because I don't want him in the car. I don't know what to do.
So, so moving back into this, the author, Jonathan, he leaves, and then it leaves Henry and his boss in there, and she wants to celebrate because he just signed him for another 3-book deal. So she like pulls out like the champagne, and she's like, the joke is like she's talking about how eloquently he speaks, and while she's doing that is having a hard time opening the bottle and starts like, son of a, like just that, the contrast of her talking about how appropriate and like beautifully he speaks as she's using terms like that trying to open the bottle.
I guess champagne is like it's like champagne and Bloody Marys are like the quote unquote acceptable alcohols to have in the morning. When she can't get this champagne open, she just starts fucking housing bourbon.
I didn't even pick up on that, to be honest with you, when I was watching it. It didn't even flag me.
Yeah, she slugged a good glass of it.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, she has like a very stiff drink and she's like putting it back.
I never understood that. In movies and TV, it's always the middle of the day, half a glass of scotch. And it's like, what are you doing the rest of the day? Because I'm fucking hammered if I'm drinking a half a pint of scotch at 11:30 in the afternoon.
You have to either keep it going, in which case you can survive, but you'll be blacked out for most of it and not know what happened, or you have to just like call it and take a nap.
And then you feel like shit. Yeah, like
that's why I never like drink on planes, because like I usually fly pretty early, and if I have a drink on a plane, I'm just sleepy after. So then I'm like sleepy at my destination. That's not what I want. That's why I never drink.
The goal is to have the drink very quickly and very stiff and then try to sleep on the plane. Like have the booze help you fall asleep so that you can be not awake on a plane, which is a nightmare.
Not really.
I love being on the plane. I watch movies that I wouldn't normally watch.
They just did a study actually that drinking on an airplane can be like bad things can happen in your brain because of the conditions you're in or something. I forget exactly what it was, but it's apparently not as safe as they make you think it is.
What a convenient study for this conversation.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
I guess because she's like the big boss, it wouldn't matter if she got hammered because she has her peons to do all the work.
Yeah, but it's a long day. You know what I mean?
Maybe she calls it quits at like 2.
I mean, that's possible too, yeah.
Maybe she's been drinking so long that that's just like water to her.
I was going to say, or she started drinking that day at like 4 a.m. So she's just like kind of comfortably going into a nighttime buzz.
I do like how, as she's drinking, she looks over the city and then she tells Neil Patrick Harris to come closer. And that's when we find out that he has vertigo. And I didn't think that vertigo made you weary of heights. I thought that was like 2 different things.
He's like, they make him a very neurotic character. And I think like it ties in because he's nervous anyways. And if his vertigo kicks in while he's like at that, it's like the fear of him falling because he's like losing balance.
I'll just bring it up for the first time now, since we'll probably get into it. He's Monk.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very strange that the most famous character Tony Shalhoub ever played is basically his counterpart in this show he did 10 years previous.
Maybe he was taking notes.
And the counterpart is that Neil Patrick Harris goes on to play a very laid back, like kind of character, when he plays Barney, which is not like he's an exact replica of Stark in this show, but it is there is a personality switch that goes from this show to their future projects.
Also, I would argue that it is not his most famous role.
You think Wings?
Yes, I would say Antonio. What's his last name? It's like Scarpacci or something.
Wings was a huge show. It was like 200 episodes, so I mean that's how we all knew him, right?
And I'd also argue that his role in Men in Black as guy who gets head shot off is his most famous role.
He does pop up in random things occasionally.
And as mentioned earlier, he's the sailor singing Macho Man drunk in the bar in Addams Family Values before Fester blows up. Yeah.
Oh, I never even realized that.
Yeah, and then the boss here, she's the mom of the snooty girl who Wednesday hates.
Oh,
Eat
yeah.
me. I was gonna say, because
Oh.
when you mentioned in the beginning, you said 2. I'm like, from this episode, there's only 6 people in this episode, so I was like, who?
I just love how many times Adam's Family Values comes up for us. It's the best fucking thing ever. I die.
As they're celebrating, she's telling that his days of editing those cheesy romance novels are over, and that she's going to be teaming him up with a major author. And he's like, "Oh my God, Jonathan Dalton?" It's like, no, Ian Stark, the horror novelist. It's like, yeah, best-selling horror novelist. And his book Below Ground apparently went like 46 weeks straight on like the Times list. Obviously, like, has made a ton of money off his one book, but he's not excited at making that switch. Like, horror is not like his genre. And then, like, when he's saying that, like, you get him like hitting his inhaler for the first time, just something he does throughout the episode. Says he doesn't like to be scared.
This is weird though, because like, are we to believe his character really likes romance novels? Like, this is also just your fucking job, man.
No,
like,
I think it was
Yeah.
like, but he thought he had put in the work and he was ready for like an upgrade to like what he's more passionate about. And horror's not that thing. I mean, he's talking about how he thinks maybe it's styled from when he was a child and a bug crawled across his nightlight, or it was the night that his upstairs neighbors were murdered. It was just like this weird throwaway line they didn't even like delve into after.
I know we don't like flashbacks because they're so overused now, but like, I feel like that of him, but not as a kid, like adult him in bed.
Doogie
with the
Howser in
covers
bed.
up. It's just him as Doogie Howser typing on the computer like he does in that episode, and just blood coming down the window.
They actually had a couple opportunities to touch on that. Like, they really like let that one line die off and not be like acknowledged again. But there's 2 different times like throughout the episode where you have him like in bed asleep, where you could have had him like abruptly wake up and like scream the name of someone or just anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird, that's such a huge like, wait, what did he say type of line, and then they just never address it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Made me laugh that they don't bring it up like it's nothing.
I mean, there are a good amount of like throwaway lines in this that I feel like the writing is good, and like, yeah, we don't have to go back to them.
Real quick though, something that annoyed me at this point, not at this point, back when they were looking out the window, was anybody else just like, oh my God, another New York City sitcom? Like, it's too much.
No, you hate New York.
I do, but no, and I don't hate New York City sitcoms though. I'm just saying, why does there need to be so many of them? This one could have very easily been in Los Angeles because that's where they
Okay,
filmed
but if it was
it. Too,
LA,
like-
you'd go another LA sitcom. Like, there's a lot of those as well.
No, how many LA sitcoms are there? Like,
I
there's
mean,
like
off the top of
20
my head,
fucking New York ones.
New York is way more than LA, though. New York is definitely the most used setting for sitcoms.
Sure, but I would say also like it was definitely the hot place. Like, Seinfeld was like, just ended at this point. The New York shows are getting the most attention, and then also like for the theme of like book editing, like that makes more sense to me. Like that genre of art, like
Yeah.
you think more East Coast,
Yeah, I
and then
guess,
New
but-
York would be like the epicenter for that.
You're going to be in New York, Chicago, or California.
Yeah, at the time this came out, it's already saturated in New York City sitcoms.
Right.
Is what I think it's strange that nobody decided to reach a little further.
I just think when you look at it, it's because what happens in a lot of these shows, at least, when you go to like the main jobs of like the main character, they're usually things that are like somewhere in the world of entertainment or broadcasting and things like that. So it makes sense to plant them in a major city. So they kind of go with the most relatable, being like New York, LA, and then like a lot of shows tend to be Midwest as well.
But I think one of the most genius things The Office ever did was be like, this is a kind of company that could exist anywhere. So they're in Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
like
I appreciate
a small
that,
yeah.
city.
One thing that I think is important to note too is like this conversation kind of closes with him saying, "Hey, I thought Calloway was editing Stark." Like, oh, Calloway's resting. Like they basically insinuate that people who work with Stark,
Oh my God! I just got the name of the show.
Stark Raving Mad. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't click to me until you just said his name.
They
again.
definitely deliberately named the character Stark so they could use that term.
Yeah.
There's a couple movies with the same title too, Stark Raving Mad. I think one with Sean William Scott. I can't remember the other one. There was a couple. Eventually, like this kind of closes out with him agreeing to take the job. Obviously, not that he really had a real choice. And then from there we get to the intro, and the intro is like just it's like black and white clips of like wacky New York things, like bubbles and a guy in a Statue of Liberty hat.
Very first second, though, it's like, skibba-dabba-dee-boo, Twin Towers. I was like, fuck yes, the first shot is the Twin Towers.
It's got scat and the Twin Towers. Count me in.
My two favorite things.
But yeah, I just thought it was like this. They're trying to show, like, you know, Nick, you always complain that they always depict New York as super dirty in a lot of these intros. This was trying to show how fun and wacky New York can be.
Yeah.
Look, bubbles in the street.
As opposed to right around this exact same time is Die Hard with a Vengeance. That is just like the dirtiest New York movie.
And then it was like a very interesting theme song that was like definitely like catches your ear.
You know what the intro reminded me a little bit of too? And I wonder if they were trying to take a nod from it because it was so popular at the time. It looks like what they would do for the intros for like Taxi Cab Confessions or
SNL.
Real Sex, the HBO shows that had like this sort of gritty, like, but I mean, like that gritty sort of New York thing where the camera's always going up and down and sideways, and they were like Real Sex, or like, hey, we're gonna talk to you on the street. Like that seemed like that was like a reference point for this to me.
There's all those fast motion. We're on top of a subway or taxi cab that is typical New York.
It's
Yeah.
at least exciting. We've talked about these boring intros in the last couple shows we've done, and it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed this one more. And also it was like a good 30 seconds too. It wasn't just like, you know, sometimes you're watching a show and you're like, you kind of need the break, especially when you're watching something analytically. You're like, I'll take 20 seconds of a song.
It felt very of the times. Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
it had that
Yeah.
late 90s specifically.
And who did the song?
So it looks like the lyrics were actually written by the creator of the show. And he's somebody we've seen a bunch because he's created a ton of shows. Some that we've covered too, and some we need to cover too, like Just Shoot Me. And he wrote for a million shows, like he wrote for Wings and everything. And then I found it appears to be the singer of this was a studio musician who wrote a few things on like a YouTube page about it, that he was in some bands, but this is just like a studio gig. So he'd be somebody who'd be really interesting to ask about that process, right? And I bet it's a bummer too. You do something like that, you're like, man, imagine if this show takes off, I will get residuals. How much money do you think the Simpsons theme song makes Danny Elfman every
I was
single
gonna say,
day?
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
plays 1,000 times a day, and it has for 40 years. Like, let alone all the other stuff he's done, like Oingo Boingo and the film scores. But that's just like that mailbox money for the Simpsons every year must be fucking bananas.
Oh man, he just getting by on his Pee Wee money.
His appearance fee for playing in Back to School.
Every time his hit song "I Love Little Girls" is played on the radio. Oh, is that not one of his big songs? Was that not actually his biggest song?
I would say Dead Man's Party is the biggest Oingo Boingo song.
I love that.
Yeah, totally. I'm with Joe. Definitely.
Biggest? I gotta do a Spotify check.
I
Hold
play
on.
that a lot every Halloween.
Yeah, it's definitely a Halloween movie.
It
Not
makes me
Halloween
think
song
of,
either.
but it's weird because it's like first time I ever heard that song was in Back to School, with
Right.
Rodney Dangerfield, and I'm like, this doesn't fit, but I love this song. And then I
All
started
right, if we're
Googling.
going by straight Spotify streams, then Dead Man's Party is his number one.
Yeah, Halloween.
And Little Girls only comes in at 5.
If the song was I Love Little Boys, Casper Jackson may have made an appearance.
Okay.
So we just narrowly missed him. Oh, what? Not this week, Casper. Sorry, bud.
Another thing to note too is like just the fact that like the intro and then all of the cutaway scenes are always in black and white. The show's not, but like all the cutaway scenes are for some reason. Like, anytime they do those like exterior shots of houses and stuff,
Yeah, they do a lot of interstitials in this show, too.
but the very 90s need to like move the camera erratically like during those at all times.
Yeah. Fast.
From there we get to the next scene and we see Henry in bed reading Ian's novel. He's like making these like very weird noises as he's reading.
Yeah.
They're almost like sex noises, pleasure noises.
It's something. They're not typical noises.
Yeah, he's afraid of everything noises, and he's reading a scary book. All right.
In a full size bed.
Oh, that bed is so tiny.
For how big that apartment is, especially, right?
Throws the book in fear, checks his pulse. That's the whole scene. So you're just getting him like getting a feel for, I guess, Ian's writing.
I just love that he flips the page and he reads one word, something, whatever that next word was, it really got him, and he throws the book.
Chapter.
Yeah. It cuts forward and you see Henry showing up at Ian's house. And like this guy opens the door and greets him. And he's like, hey, Henry's like introducing himself. He's like, Henry McNeely. And this dude's like, oh, I was hoping you were the pizza guy. He's like, oh, you ordered a pizza? He's like, nah, just hoping. And the crowd was like, thought that was hilarious.
This seemed canned because it cut this laughter cut off strangely, if you noticed.
I didn't pick up on that.
I didn't either.
This whole scene, though, I marked 2 different times in this whole first introduction scene where the crowd loses their fucking mind.
Oh, I have a couple times, yeah.
This character, too, of Jake, he just feels very much to me like Brad Pitt's character in True Romance. Or just like the dumb stoner guy who's just like around on the couch.
He's like a lot of different characters.
He's like the perfect level of the too dumb to function character, though. Like, it didn't annoy me because he didn't take that next jump.
Yeah.
Like, I could stand this guy.
Yeah. He was like dumb, but he didn't do anything that makes you go, like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like for the most part, at least.
He's just stone dumb.
Right. I mean, you see him playing guitar at one point, and then you do see him working, right? Like, at one point, you're like, okay, well, this guy has dictation he's typing out. He's obviously not that dumb, right?
Oh, he's taking dictation. All right.
So at this point, though, we still don't know if he's Ian or not until Henry and him start to talk when they walk inside of the house. Henry's like, oh, congratulations on Below Ground. He's like, oh, thanks. It took 2 years, but it was worth it. He's like, oh, 2 years isn't that bad for a first novel. He's like, no, that wasn't my first novel. They made me read a buttload of books in high school.
It's not a bad joke. I will say, though, I think it's kind of a funny thing, too, because I don't know if anybody else has read, like, Stephen King books. Some of those books are, like, unfucking wieldy. Like,
Not
I
in
read
a while.
Dr. Sleep when it came out, and it's, like, 1,000 pages. It took a long time to read it. Not 2 years, but, like, you're in that book for a while. Those horror novels can go.
I read in like, not often, but I'm at the point now where I'm like, I can't really do a book that's, like, over 300, and 300's pushing it.
So you gotta stick with them horror novellas. Nice and short.
I can do books when they're being read to me through Spotify. That's about it.
I like the Kindle. I don't like books anymore.
I need the physical book in my hand still.
I just can't like sit down and focus. Like my mind's always like, I gotta get something else done. Like I can't just like turn everything off and focus on the book. But like my brain just doesn't let me.
No, I'm with you though. An audiobook, it makes it easy. Like,
yeah.
I think it's a great thing to have, and they've been doing audiobooks.
I'll listen to an audiobook and still brag that I read the book.
I mean, you did. Like, it doesn't matter how you consume it. Like,
Yeah, you consumed it. I'd say you read it.
During this conversation is when we find out that, you know, this other guy is Jake, not Ian. And Jake works for Ian. He's the guy who types out his novels for him. You know, I'm looking at this place and like, all right, so we know this one hit book, right? And he's made all this money on this one book. Ian, that is. He has a like gigantic, beautiful apartment, has a guy, like a live-in guy who just types up his stuff.
I was gonna ask that. Does Jake live? Jake does live there.
I think so.
I think so.
I got that idea too, but it was never confirmed.
And even if he doesn't, like he like is a full-time like assistant too.
Yeah.
And this guy hasn't wrote anything in like a year, and this guy just like spends all day doing nothing then because there's nothing to type.
Do you think this is also, because obviously I feel like you're getting a little bit of Stephen King, right? Because that's like the biggest horror novelist, and we just mentioned him again. But he's so famously just churns out books. He was making so many books in the 80s, he had to start putting out books under a different name because they didn't want to flood the market with his books, right? Like he just like year, book, and still to this day. So it's kind of like the exact opposite character this guy can only write.
Yeah, until he got passed by a guy named R.L. Stein. Goosebumps for life.
I actually just watched an episode of like 1997 Goosebumps TV show this afternoon.
Well, it's like anything else, right? Whether it be music or any form of arts, there's just some people who are constantly like churning, creating, and like putting things out, and some who like novels, like movies, like albums, like some people that just take forever and ever before their next project comes out, or you know, whatever it be.
Yeah, like the Game of Thrones guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll never finish that damn book.
Yeah, well, because it stunk so bad. The end.
It didn't stink. He didn't write that. They made that because he didn't finish the book.
Yeah, but I thought that was a direction that he gave, and then
No.
went, "Oh no!"
They did that all. It was
Yeah, that was terrible. I watched that. That was the only season of Game of Thrones I watched, and I was like, "Cool, this sucked.
What?
I don't have to watch it."
what makes you only watch the last season of a show.
That is kind of weird.
The one thing Gordo actually did watch is like season 11 of some fucking giant.
My wife was really into it, and we first started dating, so I wasn't going to say no to like go over her house and watch it
Why don't you go and watch the earlier seasons? and
because
get
I don't
caught
have
up?
that much time to dedicate to it.
To be fair, anybody would be lost in the later season of something if they hadn't watched the original seasons, right? Doesn't matter what the show is.
Well, it sucked, so I don't need to watch it.
I've never seen it, but I'll take your word for it.
But I think it's like all that kind of ties in though to what we see with this character, right? And it's just that this idea, and it gets touched on later in the episode, but living up to your own hype after a while. And like I think that's kind of what happened with the Game of Thrones stuff. It's that same fear of, your stuff is so regarded and like you're on this pedestal, right? Everyone loves everything you've put out. And now you're expected to put out this next thing, but now more eyes are on you than ever before. Because when you wrote all this stuff before, no one gave a fuck. And now all these people are just like waiting, fucking, salivating for your next release. And like, what if you don't meet the expectations? Like, that's a really weird place to be.
I mean, that's the whole sophomore slump thing they always say, right? Like, it takes your entire life to write your first album, and then you have to write your second one in a week, pretty much,
Well, he also looks like a sea captain, so maybe he could just go out in his boat.
What does that even mean?
Who looks like a sea captain?
George R.R. Martin. Have you ever seen him?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Tony Shalhoub. So I actually do agree with you.
That he should just go on a boat.
Yeah, maybe it'll help clear his mind.
So at this point, Henry's asking Jake, where is he? And is he home? It's like, oh yeah, he's in his room. Just go in his room and like talk to him. So you see Henry walk into the room and like he like knocks over a lamp and it's dark in there. It's like, and he's like, Mr. Stark, I'm sorry. He's like this terrible first impression. And as he like starts to get up, you just see Ian hanging behind him, like by his neck on a noose. And you're like, what the fuck is going on with this show?
So I wouldn't be comfortable walking into his room when I never met him before. I'd be like, can you go get him, please?
Yeah. And then we have the benefit of, we're watching it like as one like long piece, but that's the commercial break as you just see Ian hanging behind him.
Yeah. And next it's like, McDonald's, Arch Deluxe, or what the fuck just happened?
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
McWorld. In the middle of the McWorld commercial after fucking hanging.
90. Are we right around Arch Deluxe right around now?
Probably.
Think so. No, it's before this.
I will confirm. Hold on.
Right at the Burger King Kids Club with wheels.
I saw a BK Kids Club commercial today too.
The Arch Deluxe was first tested in Canada in 1995 and then released in the United States in 96.
It took them a year to get that sandwich right.
The burger was discontinued in August of 2000. So when this was filming, it was around. When it came out, probably not.
No, this came out in 99. So Arch Deluxe has existed.
Oh, okay.
The exact thing that makes my brain break about that, though, is they were like, all right, guys, we've got a breakthrough new product with McDonald's. We're just going to put fucking bacon on this burger, but we're not sure people are going to like it yet. So let's test market it.
Send it to Canada first.
No, it's supposed to be McDonald's for adults because at the time people thought it was just kids' meals for children. So they were marketing as the Arch Deluxe was for adults.
Yeah.
I know that was the marketing campaign, Frank. I'm not disputing that. It's just the hilarity of like the thought train of, how can we really jazz this up for adults? Bacon. Kids hate bacon. Adults love it though.
Has anyone ever thought of putting bacon on a burger?
It also had tomato, which is not on any other McDonald's burger that I know of.
And now that is. Now they have deluxe on.
I wouldn't know. I get mine no tomato no matter what.
I know we've had this talk a whole bunch of times, but yeah, I'm like, basically I want a BLT on my burger. If I'm ordering, like I get like bacon, lettuce, and like tomato on it.
I just want ketchup and mayo.
I did it Oklahoma style recently, and I might never cook it another way.
What is that?
You steam, like you basically caramelize onions underneath the patty as you cook it. And it kind of just, it's very oniony. Like if you're not into onions, it's not your game.
That's
at
how they
all.
make White Castle burgers as well.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way.
Yeah, me too. I was like, why is it so oniony?
I was like, White Castle's so good. And then I bit into an onion.
I'll never eat White Castle again.
I know, everyone got diarrhea and sick. That was a WrestleMania 20 trip.
Yeah.
Celebrate 20 great years of WrestleMania with White Castle diarrhea. Was that on the cup? Was that part of the experience for the tickets?
4 dudes, 1 hotel bathroom, everybody had diarrhea.
The one guy go in the tub?
No, I don't think so.
This is not what people want to listen to. So
This is the spooky part of the dookie.
I would say it would be the dookie part.
You had the opportunity, Gordo, to get the dookie joke in, and you fucking blew it.
50 to get that right or wrong, and somehow the coin flipped the proper the rest of us.
What did I say wrong?
You said it's the spooky part.
Is it not?
It's a dookie story. It would be the
part.
dookie part.
It's a story about diarrhea.
The fact that even now, when we explain it back to you, you don't
doesn't
go,
re-
oh, yeah, I said the wrong thing. You don't get what we're saying is like mind-boggling to me.
No, I don't get it, but okay, fine.
What's
I can
spooky about diarrhea?
4 dudes sharing one hotel bathroom? You don't find that spooky?
Spooky because the bathroom was haunted.
More importantly, you don't get what's dookie about that? What the fuck? All right.
Still
So
don't get why
anyways.
it's spooky though.
I don't know. How about this? All of us will go share a hotel room. We'll each get diarrhea.
No,
and then
this
you
is,
tell me
this
if
is
that's
disgusting,
scary.
by the way.
Nobody wants any of
Yeah.
that.
So anyways, we get back from commercial break, and again, you see Henry like apologizing. He's picking up the lamp off the ground, and he's oh boy, he's like, what a mess. He's like, I'm really sorry about this, whatever it costs. I insist, like, send it to me. And then he turns around and he sees Ian like hanging, and he's like, oh my God. And he's like trying to pick up the body to like, relieve the pressure on the neck. And he's like calling for Jake. He's like, hey, I forgot your name. He's like, that's okay. From outside of the window, which I did think was funny.
It's kind of a fun joke, yeah.
And he's like, no, get in here.
When he grabs him, he lifts him up so easily. Like, how strong is Neil Patrick Harris, or was that a dummy?
Well, he's also on a harness that's probably under tension.
Being
so,
on a
like,
harness doesn't make him lighter, though, to lift.
Well, they could have someone at the other end like pulling to like help lift him up a little bit. But yeah, and then Jake runs in and he's screaming like, oh my God. He's like, help me cut him down, and we call 911. And then right when that's happening, Ian goes like, hey, watch those hands. And then like Henry falls to the ground in fear. And that's when you see that Ian like was faking it, but was like being held up by harness and just happened to have the noose around his neck to look like he was hanging himself.
Now, would germophobic Neil Patrick Harris touch a dead body?
I think in the moment, you're like, when you think you could potentially save a life, then yeah.
Overrides it a little bit, maybe, yeah.
So, Ferg, are you saying if there was somebody drowning, but they happened to have a bunch of onions on them, you wouldn't try to save them?
I'm not afraid of onions.
I don't think you would.
I'm trying to save you, but I just can't stop crying.
But Ferg won't do mouth to mouth on you if you've just had onions. That's a no-go.
He needs mouth to mouth. I think there's lettuce in his teeth. I think he just ate a salad.
Somebody help!
Yes. So now we know Ian's alive. And he's like, what the hell's going on? And then he's like, hey, you broke my lamp. He's like, I thought you were dead. And that makes it okay to break my lamp? And so now he's asking, well, why were you hanging? It's like, oh, I'm doing research. He's like, I may have a character who fakes his own death. I needed to make sure it was realistic. And then he's like, but your legs were so cold. He's like, yeah, I sat in an icy tub for 45 minutes to completely numb my lower extremities.
This seems excessive.
I respect the commitment.
But that's part of it, was like, it's not just how someone would react finding them, but like they would have to touch their legs too and believe that they were dead.
Suspended disbelief.
Maybe he was hoping the writer guy would find him.
I think so. I mean, like that or Jake, but if you think Jake would be conditioned to it at this point, if he always does it to him.
Yeah, because at one point later in the episode, Jake's like, oh, he's trying to fit in with us. So like this seems to be their day-to-day operation, yeah.
So while they're talking, he's like, oh, well, why don't you tell me more about this like character you're working on? He's like, why don't you tell me more about what's in that bottle? He's like, oh, hand sanitizer. So it's like, it is weird that they keep like do people not know hand sanitizer yet? I know it is like 25 years ago, but they keep like, not only do they keep going back to the hand sanitizer, but feel the need to explain it to the viewer.
I think it is one of those things, though, in that little packaging, right? It's like when you first heard of that stuff, it was for airplanes, right? Like the same thing with like airborne, right? It's like, hey, planes are kind of gnarly. Take these vitamins and like hand sanitize yourself because they don't clean a plane very thoroughly, right? I think people only knew of it as flying.
Yeah, but at that point, we were taking it to school, like hooked to our backpacks. Like, it's not.
Not at that age, though. I don't think so. Not in like middle school.
I remember having it.
And then at this point, he's like, oh, can I see that real quick? And he grabs it and he like licks the tip of it first, and then he like squirts some in his mouth and then goes to like throw it back to Henry. But as he throws it to him, like, because like he's disgusted by it, he like swats it right back midair, like right back to Ian, which I thought was like, the timing of that was
the
really
timing
great.
of this was great. And if this is a real studio audience who fucking loses it here, this was first take because they wouldn't
Yeah.
have laughed that hard if they had seen it botched a few times, right? Or they would have cheered a different way. They would have like cheered.
Yeah,
for,
it was like a perfect shot.
Yeah, this was very, very well done. I never watched more of. Obviously, he didn't do it in Doogie Howser, and movies are different. But in How I Met Your Mother, is he that physical?
No, not really.
No.
Because he's great at it. The scene later where he fucking takes a bump off the couch, you're like, that's really, really well done physical comedy. And
No,
the
he has
timing
plenty
here-
of stunts in How I Met Your Mother. Like he's like jumped off like bridges and stuff.
He's also aged remarkably well because we're currently watching How I Met Your Mother. Like it's just been like our background, like in the kitchen show. And so like we're further down. So we're probably around 2009-ish in that show. He looks exactly the same as he does 10 years prior in this.
He has aged very, very well. Yeah, he looks great.
They're continuing to talk, and then this is when we have like the dog walk up and starts humping Henry's leg. And like the audience is already losing it. And he's like, how do I stop him? And then like when he finally gets the dog off, he like lifts it, the pant leg, and starts to like squirt sanitizer on his leg. And the
They
audience
lose it again.
can't fucking control themselves at this point. They are in hysterics at this scene.
It's a funny gag. I'm like, did they get the audience drunk beforehand? Like, did they get like a Vegas audience or something? They were really loose. Yeah.
What's not funny about dog jizz?
Gordo, as your fellow Google boy, you got to do it right.
Yeah.
No, I think the scene's funny though. It's like if knowing that character, how like that would bother anyone, but knowing this character, how like grossed out by everything he is, it's so much more extreme.
I do agree that it's a funny scene, but the level of like, I mean, we hear whether it be canned laughter or live studio all the time, and it's always like in the show, and it takes a lot to like really notice something. Usually it's if one person kind of stands out from the pack or it's excessive, but this was like so loud and like people going wild that like it really caught my attention.
Yeah, it was noticeable enough.
What also made it too was Stark's line to him, and he goes, "Oh, with the leg like that, he won't stop."
Yeah, that he makes like the funny passing, like
Oh yeah, you have nice legs.
he ZZ tops him.
Buddy, there's a dog trainer out there that trained this dog to hump people. Go on, boy, go hump.
Go up, Neil Patrick Harris. Okay. If you say so. Do I get a union card for this?
Earlier it was referenced the naked Tony Shalhoub photos. This is where it comes up, where Ian's character is just talking to Henry. Is like, isn't it crazy? There's like all these websites that are like dedicated to me, and like people just like that care about like who I am and where I'm from and like what I look like naked. He's like, there's naked pictures of you on the internet. He's like, yeah, and on the fridge. And that's when he looks and he's like, oh God. And he like runs off.
That is a great fucking gag, though, to just have a naked picture of you on your fridge for people to just notice.
That is serial killer shit.
Oh, yeah. Unless he's got a good hog and he wants to show it.
True. So now this is when Henry's starting to tell him about like the system and like how he likes to go about editing. And he, you know, he has like all these multicolored index cards and he arranges them from like easy to read sequence to, you know, like all these different things and like how he likes to sort his stuff out. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. That whole thing sounds kind of peppy to me, you know, like I'm not really big on peppy people. He's like, was I peppy? I didn't mean to be peppy. And he's like, what are you, about 12? He's like, I know I look young. He's like, but I've actually been editing for almost 5 years, mostly short fiction in a few. And then while he's talking, Ian pulls out like looks almost like a pirate. Like what kind of sword is that?
It's a
Like a
machete.
machete.
Is it a machete?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a machete.
The way it was like shaped looked a little bit more like not like modern day like machete to me. It was like it looked more like from a pirate ship.
No, it's a black machete.
Yeah, it's a black machete.
The problem of having a not great quality version of this too, that like, you know, your eyes can see something totally easy, you know.
And he's using it to like pick his teeth. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I got something in my teeth. He's like, and you don't have dental floss? He's like, oh, those always make my gums bleed. It's just funny as he has this giant fucking machete in his mouth.
That's dangerous too. Machetes are like, they chop a limb off with a machete. Like if I see a real machete somewhere, like sometimes you see them at like junk shops and stuff, I like immediately get nervous. Like I don't even near something.
Yeah, I've like
that-
filleted my finger open with one before. Like the one time I've ever gotten stitches was with the machete.
that tracks.
I have one for home defense.
What?
I have a machete for home defense.
It's not a bad home defense thing, because if you swing a bat
I
at
strip
somebody,
naked and I run at you with the machete, you're not going to know what the fuck to do.
I guess. I mean, under that same theory, if you strip naked and like chase me with the fucking Nintendo controller, I'm going to be scared
I'm
too.
still gonna be like, what's happening here?
Just saying.
Machete is good for that though, because like if you have a bat and you swing it at somebody, like they can catch it and pull it out of your hands. If you swing a machete at somebody and they try to grab it, they won't have thumbs, and then they're really gonna have a hard time trying to figure out how to make their next move.
Well, with the bat, you can hit someone and they can be tough and take a bat hit, depending on where you hit them. Like, you know, you're not like in your right mind. So like you could hit them in like the chest and they go, all right, it's on. Whereas like
What you're supposed to do with the bat, someone swings at you, is to block your face, because then people's instinct is then hit you in the stomach, but then you can jump back and then your hands are free and you can pull it from them.
Would you take one of those lady self-defense classes?
Yes, they're like, we know that's my purse. I don't know you, class, but you can stay. I did walk into a women's room by accident the other day, and that was a real awkward moment. So
You look off and it's like, oh my God, someone's attacking Joe. And you just see Joe going, no, no, no.
but this is a dog biting me.
No, with a bat, you're supposed to close the gap because you need wind-up space to get enough force. So you want to be close so they can't generate the force they need to hurt you with it.
I'm just going to try to live the rest of my life in hopes that no one swings a bat at me. That's like, I know you should be prepared, but I hope this never comes up.
Yeah, you just never want to be in a bat swinging scenario. But Jay, what if it's Jose Canseco attacking you with a bat? Then what do you do?
I have a bat. Yeah, arms reach from me right now, but
now what if it was an actual bat?
Well, to define actual bat.
Like the animal, like the
Oh, well, I was gonna say a baseball bat is an actual bat. That's not.
I mean, an actual bat. Like, I don't know how else to say that.
As long as it doesn't like touch my face, like I wouldn't be that freaked out by a bat near me. But we talked about bats recently. So now Henry's talking to Ian. He's like, listen, like I know what you've been going through, and he's telling me he's been having trouble like facing a blank page. And basically saying like, you know, if we kind of combine our talents together, we're gonna end up with this great book. As he's telling this whole story, like he's like trying to piece it together by like making an origami crane. And he's like, he puts it in Ian's face at the end of his little monologue, and Ian just holds the lighter up to it and sets it on fire.
Neil Patrick Harris holds onto this thing on fire for way longer than I thought I would too. Usually it's like a flash paper thing where like they'll throw it, you know, and but he's like holding onto it, trying to blow it out for some reason, which is a fool's errand for sure.
I remember we've talked about this in like older episodes we've covered way back. We don't see a lot of stuff like this modern day. I feel like modern sets are too overly cautious with things to like pull off these like small fire gags. Like too much stuff has to happen.
I don't think it's that. I think it's the invention of digital effects. You don't do that. They would just do a CGI fire nowadays.
Yeah, but that would make it look terrible. Like I fucking hate CGI.
I agree. I'm just saying that that's what they would do now. That's why.
But it's just like all the precautions that go into that stuff. Like you always hear about like for anything, like if a candle's lit, you know, I know like other like TV watch along podcasts I've listened to like talk about, you know, like that have like actors that were on the shows. They'll say like it could literally be a candle in the background. If it's like lit, they have to go through like fire safety like things before the scene starts.
Yeah, I imagine
liability and insurance and everything else. Yeah.
I remember, I'm not bringing this up to be funny, but like when I was doing the Ghostbusters thing, I remember talking to like, I'm not SAG. I was just a guy who like signed up, but there were like other like extras and shit who were just like, who actually had SAG cards and stuff. And there was like, if a scene has like smoke in it, they get paid like a premium just because there's like smoke in the air, like even though like controlled limited amounts. It's crazy how much that stuff's regulated.
Very, very good. Yeah, I mean, like they have like the best insurance. They get the best rates for things. I think if you go like overtime too, the pay is ridiculous, like triple time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I can understand how modern day they just like, let's just not bother with fire unless we have to.
I mean, that's why people like Terry Funk are so smart, right? Where like he just did something like once a year to keep his SAG card up because he knew he was gonna need good insurance for the rest of his life.
Oh, the insurance for the other stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So now in the next scene, we see Henry and he's walking into like this like small club like bar like situation, and he walks over to the bartender and he's like, "Hey, I was supposed to meet someone upstairs, but I got a note saying to come down here. Do you know who Ian Stark is?" And the bartender's like, "The singer?" Like, "No, the author." And she's like, "No, the singer," and points to the stage, and you see Ian, who's like playing with the full band, and like Jake's on guitar. and they're doing a cover of Vehicle by the Ides of March.
What's really funny is the way I know this song the most is it's, I don't know if anybody's ever seen Lock Up, the Sylvester Stallone movie from like 1989. It's like a prison movie with Donald
I'm familiar
Sutherland.
with, but I don't think I've seen it. But I am familiar.
It's a really, really good movie. It's a crazy good cast. But like, there's a scene because they work in like the auto shop of the prison where like they do like the most 80s ever montage to this song. So the fact that they use this and then go into a montage, I thought was pretty fun.
Kind of a random song pick. Like, I like those, like that right level of random, and did need to at some point, like when I was done doing my notes, like I had to like give the song a listen to like get it out of my system afterwards.
Want you, need you. A very good, like a deep, soul-y voice in that song too.
I love, fun fact, I love horns and songs like that big band like sound behind it, really can boost a song sometimes.
You must love late 80s Aerosmith.
I mean,
No, he loves the honking on Bobo era.
Well, we all love honking on. Is there a better era of Aerosmith than honking on Bobo era? If so, I don't want to hear
What
it.
were happening to the Bobos before Aerosmith? Because
they went unhonked.
they went unhonked. Yep.
Also, this actress here who's playing the bartender, who's like a main character of the show, she's pretty famous now for being on one of the Real Housewives shows. But her brother-in-law was Kevin Dubrow, the singer of Quiet Riot.
Oh, wow.
Neat.
Oh, that is cool. So wait, like she's like one of the housewives?
Yeah, or maybe Orange County, because her husband is like Kevin Dubrow's brother is like a super famous LA surgeon.
Oh.
Which I think is like how you get on a show like that. You're like, I do acting and I'm married to a famous doctor. Like, cool, you're on a housewife show now.
Every time you say Orange County, I picture Florida and not LA.
A Real Housewives of Orange County that took place in Florida would actually maybe make me want to watch that show. I can imagine that being way more fun.
So after he turns and sees them playing the song, like he's talking to the bartender a little bit more, and she's like, "Oh, let me buy you a drink." And he's like, "Oh no, I'm not really much of a drinker." And she's like, "Oh, you will be." And he's like, no, this is different. Like, I guess like the idea of like anyone who works for Ian, like it's such like a process, like because we've already learned about like the last person that worked under him is now resting. But this guy Johnny seems fine, right? Like he's like having the time of his life. He's in the band with them. He's with them all the
Jake?
time.
I think he's just on like a different wavelength. So he just it just skirts by him because it's not really in the same, they're not in the same world. They just happen to be with each other.
He has the best life ever, though, because he's making all this money and he's not doing any work because
Oh, yeah.
Stark hasn't written in a long time. So he doesn't have to dictate anything. He's like, hey, do you want to get drunk tonight and go play a show at some bar? He'd be like, hell yeah, I do.
But like the bartender's even like going as far to say like, you know what? Like I better not get to know you too well. It always makes it harder, like, like once you inevitably snap. And it's like, so like, is it like this bad to work around this guy? Like this many people like have nervous breakdowns after being around him for too long?
I mean, let's look at what we have so far. I would say probably if you were his handler, I would say yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so far he's hung himself. He's lit a crane on fire in the guy's hand.
So he has nudes on the fridge.
Yeah, naked fridge pictures.
And then we cut back to like the band playing, and he walks up because he's trying to get his attention, and Ian like shoots the mic over to Henry and like to sing along, and you get the quick like need you like trying to like sing along. And I like how they actually did like the editing here. I thought was nice because it like fades from like the music continues playing, but it kind of goes into a montage now where we're still hearing like the song. We see kind of like how things start going between the two of them as they work together. So you're seeing them like working, and then like Ian chasing him with a chainsaw, and then like dancing on a ledge, and then like they're sword fighting, and then like the sword
More
fighting
Addams
is when it
Family.
that's kind of when it takes a turn too with them. The sword fighting is like it ends and like they kind of high five. So like you see like they are becoming like friendly with each other as this process is going on.
What an odd process to get the juices flowing.
A little sword fighting.
Yeah.
I would love to do fencing. I don't know if there's anyone around here who does it. I just have always wanted to do it. The mask is fun. It seems like it's a fun thing to do.
I did it
In
once.
your parts, is there a fencing club? Probably not. Fencing, what kind? Wood or PVC?
As somebody who paid a lot of money for a new fence last year, that's very offensive to me. I don't even know how you look that up. Like every time in fencing, Maine, it's going to be like...
Fencing club. You just put up fencing club. I did it one time. I did an introductory course. It was fun.
Wait, what?
I did a fencing class. A friend of ours and I decided that we were going to do it. when we first moved in with each other. And that's how we were going to settle arguments. And I won the one duel I was ever in.
Update, there's one 25 minutes away from my house.
There you go.
Portland.
Yeah, there's a Portland fencing club.
Oh, Portland makes sense now that I think about it.
All them wacky hipsters.
I love Portland. But anyways, when that little montage ends, we see it kind of like fades into Henry and Jake at the apartment together. And it's kind of weird because like at this point, Henry's like frustrated with like we have this whole montage. We see the two of them kind of almost like bonding in a way, but now he's kind of like breaking down a little bit, and he's mad about like how in like the last 4 days that he's been there, he's been getting nothing but like pranks and excuses. It's like, well, what was that whole montage for? The whole montage, like, I guess if you take out, I mean, the beginning parts make sense, but it closed out on them having fun together. So now I don't understand why he's mad all of a sudden.
It's because he doesn't realize he's having fun. He doesn't realize is that he's opening up. He thinks he's trying to help this other guy, but this other guy's helping him. And
yeah, I could see that because it does kind of come full circle a little bit later on. And as he's like kind of going on and talking about how like all these pranks become stale and like predictable, he goes to move a box off the couch. And the second he moves the box, you see Ian's head just like up, like with his tongue out, like he's decapitated.
He ruined a couch for this gag, though, and a box.
luckily he's rich.
Yeah, true.
And I thought it was a good visual gag, like to just, I mean, it's like simple. He just has his head through the couch cushion, but it was funny.
When he pops up too, Neil Patrick Harris like jumps, catches his leg on the arm of the couch, and does like a cartwheel bump onto the ground. And then Tony Shalhoub's like, he fell over the couch. And I don't think that was dialogue. I think he's like so genuinely laughing at what just happened. And they were like, this is perfect. We have to keep that in.
Oh, you think he improv'd it?
I think it wasn't even improv. I think it was just real reaction.
And again, this is research. He's saying that this is him trying to determine how someone would react upon finding a decapitated head. And he's like, so you scientifically proving that a normal reaction to finding a decapitated head is to be startled? Like, he's like, and pissy. He's like, he tells Jake, write that down. Like, pissy. And now he's getting mad. Says like, I'll show you pissy, you determined, irresponsible, death-faking freak. And he's going, quick, Jake, get the index cards. He's organizing a tantrum, which I thought was like such a great rebuttal.
Like organizing a tantrum sounds like a 90s book.
It's like if you have to pick sides in like if this was like real life, like I would be so proud of someone if they said that to someone, like, oh, perfect zinger.
Yeah, because it's never that. You never have that moment in real life. It's always just like, hey, well, fuck you, man. Like you never have something really good.
And this whole argument's happening while there is still a couch cushion around his head. Like he's wearing it around his neck.
I love he never takes it off.
Yeah, it adds to the absurdity of it.
And then I didn't catch the reference. I think one of you guys probably would have. And he's going, oh, that's funny. That's real funny. You know what cracks me up? And then Jake just goes, that guy who plays piano and sings songs about Congress?
Mark Russell.
Yeah.
I didn't get the reference.
Gordo, don't yell like you got it.
Also, yeah, Gordo, fuck off. There's 0% chance you do that.
You would know him. I mean, he's been The Simpsons parodies him. There's a whole episode of News Radio where Phil Hartman tries to be him. If you saw him, he's like the older guy. He always had like a American flag painted piano, and he did like kind of stand-up comedy songs about politics. So he was always on like the news and stuff. Yeah, if you see him, you'll be like, okay, I remember this guy from when we were kids.
I'm sure that was something my mom watched.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it was something that wouldn't have been something we watched because we wouldn't have known what the fuck politics really were when we were 12. You know what I mean? But he was around, and
he died last year.
Oh, R.I.P.
These two keep arguing and arguing. There's like this, everything's kind of like coming to a head at this point. Henry's super frustrated. He's just like tired of all the pranks. He's like, no work's getting done. Ian, obviously their styles clash, and I think Ian's just more on the defense at this point. Like, I think he was having fun with Henry around, but like at this point, like he's just gonna lash back at him. But they're arguing, and he's like, all right, bye. Sorry we scared you away. It's like Henry's trying to get out of there. He's like, you're the one who's scared. He's like, me? Of what? He's like, of writing, Ian. He's like, of failing, of finding out that you're, your worst fear, and that's that you're nothing but a one-book wonder. Then Henry walks out. And then again, like we talked about this earlier, like I think that's like kind of what happens is, we go back to that whole thing with Game of Thrones and stuff. It's just, maybe it's not that he has writer's block, but like you start second guessing like all your stuff when it's like when something's so critically acclaimed. Like now the expectations are so high that like I don't know, it's not a position we've ever been in. You know what I mean?
Well, you can you have the opportunity to ask an author about it. We have one amongst us.
I never followed up.
That's true. Gordo never put out a second book.
I'm still working on it.
Can we get a cameo for you from Neil Patrick Harris to tell you that much like the character in his beloved show Stark Raving Mad, you should work on your second book?
I have a book in the works.
Oh, we've talked about this. This is Gordo's cryptozoology erotica.
Yes, it's a Bigfoot erotica book.
So if anyone wants to, when Gordo finishes his Bigfoot porn, we'll be sure to link that up and let you know where to find it.
Big feet, big meat, the Gordo story.
No, it's not. It's called The Missing Link or My New Kink, an erotic romp with Bigfoot.
Oy.
How many pages you got?
Like 25. That's all you need.
How many pages do you really have?
About 25.
I would say just slice that into a tenth. I'd say 2.5 and we'll call it a day.
How many have words on them?
All of them.
It's just manic scribblings of naked Sasquatch.
Technically, it's a 100
Bigfoot's
page
dong going
notebook, so.
across 3 pages.
It's the book of his dick just getting bigger and bigger.
You just see him with his glasses on at night with a little light. Honey, how do you spell?
Gordo, you should make it a pop-up book.
It's a flip book.
I could read you an excerpt, but I don't think anybody wants that.
Oh no, if you have an excerpt,
I would love an excerpt, actually.
Give me 1 second and I can...
He's
Oh
having
no,
AI
he's not
made an
fast
excerpt
enough
right
to
now.
make it up off the top of his head. You'll know right away.
I'm not.
Or he's
Trust
AIing
me.
it. I think Nick's got him there. We'll know when he says the word wrong because it's spelled properly. I can't do the hands.
Just starts reading the plot of Harry and the Hendersons.
Just reads the sad last page. Then John Lithgow slaps Harry. His big meaty hands.
Amelia gazed upon Bigfoot's muscular waist. Her eyes grew wider at the sight of his loins. Swelling from the mound of fur beneath his waistline did the mythical creature was an ever-growing dong that seemed to point upwards at a 72-degree angle, as if the sky was summoning it. The towering 15 inches of molten manhood resembled that of a canine, a ruby-red rocket throbbing, yearning for Amelia's soft touch and warm nether lips.
I expect you to compare Bigfoot to a canine. The smallest animal you do.
It's his only point of reference, though.
You just lost all our Neil
Hold on.
Patrick Harris
Hold
fans
on.
that we brought in for
For everyone who knows our show and listens and knows Gordo's much a dog guy, the fact that when he writes his erotica, his best point of reference was to write in a gigantic dog dick.
How would you describe Bigfoot's dick?
He's more humanoid than anything.
He's not a
It's
canine,
like
he's a humanoid.
just a regular dick, dude. Like, maybe a little hairier. Like, why does your Bigfoot have a dog dick, dude? Oh,
Why is it such a specific angle of trajectory into the sky?
She touched the giant red chapstick to her lips.
Is it egg? Though is the question I need to know.
You guys wanted an excerpt. There
I
you go.
flat out said no. Don't say you guys.
And he's like, hold on, let me find the point where I so eloquently made it so the dick looked like that of a dog's. Hold on.
Will there be accompanying pictures for this book, Gordo?
No.
He just takes pictures of his dog with the Wookiee mask on.
I got receipts.
Like they say, write what you know, right?
Exactly. Bigfoot dong.
Well, anyways, so now in the next scene, we see Henry asleep in bed, and Jake's at his window, and he like climbs inside to wake him up. He's like, Henry, wake up. He's like, whoa. And he wakes up, he's like, you just break in? He's like, why didn't you just call? He's like, well, it's really scary to get a phone call in the middle of the night.
This is a real 80s, 90s trope, too.
I thought this was really funny, actually. Just the way Jake played it.
I thought it was played really well. I would say that was the most that it would have leaned on the too dumb to function like meter, but he played it so innocently when he said it. Like I did get a kick out of it.
Jake's line here, too, I think is my favorite line of the whole episode.
Oh yeah, because he's noting how nice his place is. He's like, how can you afford this? He's like, oh, my father helps me out. He's like, oh, he must be rich. What does he do? He goes, oh, he's a trader. He's like, and the government just lets him walk around.
It's so fucking great.
He's like, commodities. Didn't we just do something where someone was a commodities trader too? Like, it's oddly enough.
Yeah, I think it's come up a few times.
Yeah.
Can't remember what show. It's pretty recent. He's like, look, don't say anything, but I had to show you these. And then Jake pulls out like a bunch of pages. He's like, Ian started writing again. He's like, when? He's like, tonight, like right after you left. He's like, you know what? I'm not even interested. He's like, what? He's like, I'm not interested. He's like, the guy hasn't written in over a year. He's like, you did it. Like, you got him writing again. He's like, you have to stick to this. He's like, doesn't loyalty mean anything to you? He's like, probably not. Not with your turncoat dad. And then like Jake tosses the pages on Henry's bed and climbs back out the window. Now that Henry's alone again, he like picks it up and starts reading. And this is again, like, I thought like the editing of this whole part was really good. It was a very different vibe though than the rest of the show.
It's a much darker montage than
Yeah.
the earlier one.
So like you have him like reading the excerpt from the book, and like while he's reading it, it's like darkness devoured the landscape, a glutton of lavish feasts. It's better that way, Tom thought. And then it like fades to Ian's house, and now you have like Ian like talking into his like recorder and like continuing on the story. And while he's narrating his book, like, and you can see him going through the process of writing it, it's like flashing back and forth. And you see, a mix of Henry in bed reading it, and you have Jake who's like listening and like typing it out, and like everyone like so impressed and like into this book. And again, like just the way the editing went and everything, I just thought it was like done really smooth. It was
yeah, it was seamless.
Yeah, it was just, I was like, is this like show starting to turn the table a little bit? Because it felt a little like too hokey at points for me up front, and like this like really shifted, and I was like, is it gonna stay this tone now? It was like, it just felt like such a departure from the early part of the episode, like 2/3 in.
So what was really strange is the audience laughs at every little joke. They go nuts at some of the silliest things. And then there's this part when they're reading the book, and he gets scared from the book and takes the inhaler. And I think that was supposed to get a big laugh.
I wrote that,
and there's
exact note
no
down.
reaction whatsoever from the audience. Zero.
Yeah.
That's a different audience that day.
Well, I couldn't tell. Like, obviously, we don't know if it's a studio audience or not, but this is one of those montages that could have been filmed separately from it. So, like, if so, you would have had to inject some canned laughter, like, because they didn't do it live, like, on the scene. Yeah, no, I have that exact note because I feel like that darkness of the scene needed that at the end, is like the little punch. So now it's just this odd, quiet scene of him doing an inhaler for no reason.
But yeah, that's a good point. They must have been filmed separately, so there was no context for the audience.
Yeah, and like they didn't like leave the note for the editor to be like, hey, make sure you toss in a laugh right here.
Also, too, because it's the pilot, right? Like, you don't know if it's a show is going to get made to series, if it's going to go to air. So maybe they weren't even thinking of having that continuity, right? Because they were like, no one will notice. They didn't think that 21 years later or whatever, like a bunch of fucking idiots would be going so analytical on it.
Analytical on the audience laughing.
That's how you know we take our job seriously. We really dig deep.
We've done there's like 182, I think. So
is it 10,000 hours they say to be an expert on something?
We've definitely eclipsed that.
No, I think we're at, well, if you count what we actually put out into the world as an episode, it's probably like 2 hours ish an episode. So that's only like 360 hours, but
we're getting there. We're gonna be experts real soon.
Now we see Henry like walk back into his boss's office, and he's like showing her the pages. She's like, oh, congratulations. These pages are extraordinary. It's like brilliant. He's like, I couldn't agree more. The language, the imagery, the man's a genius. He's also a raving lunatic, so you have to get him away from me. He's like, what? Like, no, I can't take it anymore. He's like, in this last week, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten, I haven't shaved. She's like, you haven't shaved? He's like, yeah, if you look right. He's not like a guy who like, I think to this day, he probably couldn't grow like a full beard if he tried. Yeah.
I think he has a very funny mustache in A Million Ways to Die in the West, though.
Oh, probably an add-on, though. Hollywood makeup.
I stupidly like that movie so much.
She's like, come on, like, just roll with the punches. He's like, no, like, I swear to God. He's like, you have to give me another author right now, or I'm going to jump out of this window. And he jumps up on the windowsill where, like, originally he was afraid to even, like, stand near it, before. Now he's, like, up on the windowsill. And she's like, Henry, you're vertigo. He's like, who cares? He's like, get me off the Stark train or mop me off the sidewalk. She's like, all right, fine, I'll get you another author. He's like, I want Jonathan Dalton. Like, fine, just come down. And I want a raise. And she goes, in that case, I'm afraid you're going to have to jump, and walks away. I was like, what a weird way to end that scene.
Well, she, as we've noted, she's probably fucking blasted because it's 9:07 in the morning.
That's true, yeah.
But again, it was like, it's so weird. Like, it's like the shifts, like, it's tough to track. Like, you see them have fun, and then he's like lashing out at him, and then like they have the fight, and you can see that the fight's working, and he wrote all these like brilliant pages that he loves. He reads it, but he's like, but I still can't work with them. And like, so now he's like, and in a point of the extremity too. Like, I don't feel like there's enough for him to be this angry anymore. Like, he's seeing like production out of him, and he's like still ultra mad. So I don't feel like his emotions like equaling what he should be feeling right now.
I certainly think this should have been his like come to God moment where he realizes that like, oh, this cured my vertigo. This helps everything. I need this guy in my life. Like,
Yeah.
We do get it in the next scene though when he does get with Jonathan. Yeah.
But this scene just felt a little out of place. Like his, like, I know that they have to get you to the point where he's with Jonathan, but it didn't, I don't know, like something about the tone, like where he's at doesn't seem to fit anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think if you had him come to Jesus or God or whatever in this moment, and then you just eliminate the Jonathan scene, you could have him just doing the like, look, I think we need each other, and you don't have to.
True. Although I do like how the scene plays out. I think this scene actually does play pretty well. Because like that's what we're seeing next is him now in like Jonathan's office, and they're working on his book, and he has a very similar style, right? We know that Henry does like the index thing, and then so does Jonathan. So Jonathan has all these index cards laid out like on this like on like a display board, and he's kind of going over what everything means. So like basically Henry's getting everything he's wanted, right? Now he's doing the genre he wants with the guy he wanted to work with, who has a very similar style. We saw that earlier with the hand sanitizer when they met earlier in the beginning of the episode. We see that they have the same like format for editing here with the index cards. So in theory, he should be happy. And he's just sitting there completely bored as he's going over everything. And as he's pointing Jonathan with like the little pointer he has to show him like, you know, certain areas with the index cards, you get Henry like grabbing like a pen and like playing swords with them real quick with the pointer. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, nothing, sorry. And like, now you can see that like he misses Ian and like kind of the life that he had with him.
Yeah.
I'm not a note card person, but I'm a Post-it person. I have Post-its like all over my work desk. And I even have like a thing that like goes on the side of my monitor. Like I like put everything that's going on for me in the day. It's daunting. And if I met the exact equal of me who did that too, I'd be like, no, I can't be around this. It's like just too fucking much, you know? So I totally understand it.
I'm big on like phone notes. Like while I'm out and about, like I always like go to like my notepad thing on my phone and like add little notes and stuff throughout the day.
I never go back to them.
Also, I feel like Jonathan wouldn't need him. He seems pretty organized. I don't feel like he'd need an editor.
I think as part of the process though, you need an editor. It's like to put the book out because like you can't leave somebody alone. That's why like I don't know if you've ever read like the Jack Kerouac book On the Road. Like in whatever anniversary, it was like the 60th anniversary. They're like, we're putting out the manuscript edition, which is just like 700 pages of his rambling completely left unedited. And you're like, who the fuck would read this? This is serial killer shit. You're selling this? I feel bad for the trees that were killed for this stupid thing. But that's why you have to have an editor. Otherwise, you go Kerouac on everybody's ass.
So the scene kind of fades out from there. And in the next scene, now we see Ian and Jake, and they're walking into Ian's place together. But they hear Henry like inside yelling for help. It's like, what the hell is he doing? And then like you see when they open the door, Henry's hanging from the ceiling by like his waist with that noose like loosely dangling around his neck. Like he was trying to like set up the thing he had set up only in the middle of the living room.
I didn't like this because it's not going to scare him. He knows what's happening. It's his device that is obviously being used. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to scare Stark.
It could have, I guess, because you wouldn't expect it from Henry. So I guess I could see how that would, if executed properly, could startle him. Like, oh, I pushed him to the edge, because he has seen that with many of his other like assistants in the past, right? So
my brain went so dark here immediately though, where he's hanging from his belt with the noose around him, and I'm just like, oh, is there like a little sex worker running out the window right now? Like this is how David Carradine lost it, right?
And it's weird though, because when they're asking like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to be less phobic, and it's not going well. So like, so you weren't trying to play a prank? Like, this is you trying to get over your fears? Like, he just breaks in. He's like, oh, I'm going to try to fake hang myself in his apartment.
Yeah, I didn't get that either, but meh.
Trying new things, that's all.
I guess, yeah.
Expanded horizons.
He's like, you got it on wrong. He's like, oh, you think? And they ask him, what are you even doing here? He's like, I read your pages. He's like, how do you even get my pages? And then he looks over at Jake, and Jake's like, I'll go find out, and runs out of the room to leave the two of them together.
How much time has passed since he initially quit?
4 days.
Yeah.
They do say it.
That's like strange that he's like, I read your page, just finding out now. Like,
Yeah.
So now Henry's telling Ian, I want to work on that book with you. It's brilliant. He's like, oh, that's funny. Didn't you say that I was a one-book wonder? So he was like, I was wrong. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in a harness and it's killing me right now. He's like, and then he goes, no wonder why women always play Peter Pan, because of his nards.
That got a big laugh.
It did.
Yeah.
Do women always play Peter Pan?
Historically
Yeah.
in plays, yes.
Yeah, and there's the live action movie before the Disney movie that's a female lead as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think mainly just because, like, when you have, like, an adult playing it, and, like, the whole thing is Peter Pan's supposed to be a child.
yeah, women have those soft features.
Yeah, a grown man versus a grown woman's going to be, like, closer to, like, a little boy's, like, overall look.
Tinkerbell, it's me. Like, that isn't working. I think we need to recast this.
Quick side note: have you seen the new Rescue Rangers movie that came out?
Yeah,
No.
No.
It's phenomenal. Watch it immediately.
it's decent.
I
It's
love it.
phenomenal.
I love it.
I thought it was really good too, actually.
Is that on like Disney Plus or something?
It's on Disney Plus. I know you don't like Andy Samberg, but watch it.
I'll give it a shot. I like the Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, a lot of good nostalgia. And a few things I know you won't get.
Oh, is there some like modern references that I'll just be like, huh?
There's a couple modern references that you just won't understand, but
Overall, I think it does a good job of like looking at the past and stuff like that and making it make sense for a modern movie. But anyways, moving past that, he tells Henry, like, forget it, you quit. He's like, yeah, but then you wrote again just to prove me wrong. So admit it, like, you need me. All right. He's like, so he's like, all right, you know what? I'll go first. You frighten me and you're weird and you're dangerous and unsanitary, but maybe I need a little bit more of that in my life right now. Okay, so now you go. He's like, go. All right. This is the part where you admit that you need me. He's like, okay, go. And then, like, his back's turned to him and he goes, I need you. And he's like, see, was that so hard? And then you see Ian turn around, but he said it into his recorder. So he's just like recording part of a scene. So he goes, said the old caretaker's wife as he plunged the dagger into her heart. He's like, no, that was for me. And like, he's like, in like the whole thing is he just keeps going on and on.
And he's still hanging through this whole scene too, right? Yeah.
now was it for him or was that a cover up?
It was a cover up. He was telling him like, I need you. But as Henry's like desperately trying to get Ian to admit it, he won't. And like walks over to his room and then shuts the light and shuts the door. And he goes like, you need me. You need me. You need me. And then when the door shuts and the lights go out, he goes, I need you.
I did really enjoy him having to change course here.
He's like, no help. And then that's when the dog runs up. And that's how the scene closes with the dog running up and like jumping up at him. He's like, no, not you, Edgar. Obviously that gets a nice little crowd pop to end the evening.
A very abrupt ending. I was surprised.
I think that's just our version of it just stops.
So I was wondering that because our version is like a little under 21 minutes. So there is definitely an opportunity to be that like credit scene, that like that little post scene that happens.
Yeah.
That might have gotten cut off. There's no way for us to know.
Most of our sitcoms that we do when you cut out all the commercials are almost always 22 minutes.
Yeah. So this one is a smidge short. This is definitely like a good ending point, but I feel like there could have been like a little extra scene afterwards.
Well, maybe after we push this into the world, it'll show up on Peacock someday. And then we'll still never know because the autoplay next episode will cut it off and you'll go
and
nuts
you can't see
trying
it
to
anyways. Yeah. It's like when you would like DVR live TV and it would like always for sure cut off like the very end of the like whatever like final scene on every show you watch.
You have to do like the 5-minute overrun. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the conclusion of the episode. I don't have a lot of other stuff. There's not a lot when you go to look it up, but
It is not much.
we talked about ratings and stuff like that. And the show is definitely up against the wall. Didn't have a lot going for it. And its actual time slot kind of hurt it too, because when the show, this only had the one season It went up against Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in its first year aired when that show took over the world.
God.
Yeah.
So isn't it crazy that this still was averaging 50, to put TV into perspective then versus now too, only 25 years later, 15 plus million people average a week were watching this show.
Yeah.
While Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was still the biggest thing going on in the country at the time.
And was crushing it.
Yeah.
That's how many people were watching TV every Thursday night. It's fucking
That was
wild.
like, if you're the first guy who won the $1 million, like that was one of those things like people were calling each other. Like my dad would like, did you hear someone won the $1 million? Like that was like, it was like a thing.
Yeah.
It really did take over society. Like every fucking sketch show, jokes about everything. Like it was just all you heard or saw everywhere for so long.
So how shitty is it to be put up directly against that?
But you know they probably were just like, oh, it's a fucking Regis Philbin primetime game show. This isn't going to be watched by anybody, right? Like nobody would have guessed that was going to take
Because
off.
that changed the face of game shows again. Like the
Yeah.
idea of a primetime game show like didn't exist at that time.
Steve Harvey would be like so lost right now if primetime game shows didn't become a thing.
I wonder what kind of numbers they were looking for if that wasn't enough.
It was like ranked 19th overall amongst like programming too. Like it was like, it didn't do that bad overall. So I don't really know what like their expectations were
A top 20 show that wins an Emmy,
for like best new comedic series. Yeah. Like
you probably give it a second season. You know what
It's
I mean?
an over. I think at this time it's just an oversaturated market too. So like you got to be good to stay at the top of the pack, and they just weren't good enough. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just they weren't good enough.
It's just strange they didn't even try changing the time or anything. If it's going against
Yeah.
that,
That is strange that they didn't even give it a
this
shot.
doesn't,
Yeah.
and this doesn't even weigh towards my vote or not, but it just feels like top 20, 15 million viewers, like People's Choice Award. I think there's enough there to at least try the second season and see what
Yeah, for
happens.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Seinfeld, right? Like Seinfeld had terrible numbers in the first season, and they were just like, they believed in it. This is NBC as well. They're like, we think there's something here. We'll try to keep going with it, right? And it became
Also a different time though. Yeah.
10 years earlier, right?
And I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a matter of, sometimes you just need that one guy who's backing you. And like maybe there's just
Yeah.
no one in
Yeah.
the studio championing enough for the show. So it just didn't happen.
WNBC.
But with all that said, I mean, I don't have anything else to say about the show. So unless any of you have anything, we can get into the green light or cancels.
I'm going to bring up that apartment looked really familiar. We talked about it before.
Yeah, I
tried to
agree.
look it up. I tried to look it up, couldn't find a damn thing.
It has that weird little loft. We mentioned Frasier, but Frasier and it were literally back-to-back shows. It reminds me
Yeah.
a lot of the layout for 2.5 Men. It kind of like that house too has like a similar vibe and layout. But beautiful, beautiful house that he lived in this show. But that's sitcoms in general.
And now that property in New York City, like a few years later, would end up being worth so much more money.
Oh, easily.
But yeah, might as well get into the green lights now. So I'm gonna go in the order I see you guys in. Joe, starting with you.
Yeah, I don't know why. Sometimes it's a good surprise, right? But I saw this and I like everybody in the cast. I was just like, this fucking title, and it's gonna be scary. And I went into it sort of sour. And I was changed pretty quickly. I think it's a really well done sitcom. I think everybody's really good in it. I got some genuine laughs out of it. I thought it was interesting. I thought what they were going for was interesting. And I like that you see such a change in a pilot episode. In 20 minutes, they make Neil Patrick Harris like change completely, right? Like you feel like you want to watch the next episode to see how this is going to keep evolving. I hope it ends up on like a Peacock or something. I'd like to see more of it. I don't think I'll continue watching it on YouTube because I had to have it on like a pretty low, small screen to keep the resolution from completely getting destroyed. But it's a green light. I think it's really funny. I'm sad it didn't get its due, and I hope someday we can see more of it in better quality.
Ferg.
Yeah, I'm with Joe with that. I went in pretty negative on this show for some reason, and it turned my opinion around. It's got a great cast. At first, I didn't like that first scene, and then from there on, it's just, I was sucked in nonstop. I love Tony Shalhoub. I love Neil Patrick Harris. Good writing. I like that I noticed that he's changing without them telling me, and then later they do tell you, but it's just smart writing that you see the change in each of them. So this show gets a green light from me.
I'll take the middle spot here. When I first watched it, I was a little conflicted because there was just I think I was being too analytical, which is tough. Like I try to watch it, I always say twice. I try to watch it once through to just enjoy it for what it is, and then I try to really dive in when I do the notes. But for whatever reason, the first time I watched it, I was being like hypercritical of things, and I think I was expecting the show to be terrible, so I was looking for things to pick apart for the fun of it. But then when I kind of rewatched it, it was like the opposite. I was watching a little bit more loose and kind of enjoyed the jokes for what they are. There's definitely things that I think could have been done better, but overall, I think the chemistry between Harris and Shalhoub is really good, and I think that's enough to carry the show alone. I don't know how far you can take this horror novelist thing, but I've seen shows with weirder premises last years. So I'm going to go ahead and give it the green light too. Nick?
Yeah, not to reiterate too hard, I'm giving it the green light too. It's Tony Shalhoub, it's Neil Patrick Harris, both in really, good roles for them. I truly think that this show, in a different atmosphere, in a more suitable environment for it to grow, does much better. Like multiple seasons, but we talked about it. It was sandwiched between two juggernauts, and they didn't seem to care enough to keep it going. But I really do think that if this existed in its own plane and was able to, have the room to grow, I think it would have done really well just because of the first episode. I think it's a very, very easy green light, and it's sad that it didn't get more, but what happens, I guess.
Gordo.
Yeah, I'm not going to rock the boat here. I'm going to greenlight it as well. That first scene, I was like, what is this? And then it just grew on me. The second Tony Shalhoub comes in, it grew on me. Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much said everything, so there's not much I can add to it other than Tony Shalhoub looks way different with a mustache and like a goatee or a Van Dyke or whatever you call it. But other than that, green light.
Yeah, so I think a pretty unexpected 5 out of 5 from us. Really didn't see that coming. Just, again, this was just kind of a show like looking around. I was like, oh, I guess this fits the theme of the month. We could sneak this one in here. And, here we are now giving it a perfect 5 out of 5. And the other thing I want to mention real quick before I get into the whole outro is, again, we brought it up earlier, but so interesting to see these two guys who both had pretty iconic roles after this show. So I guess like this show kind of had to die for them to succeed elsewhere. Both of them playing the complete opposites of what we know them from is very interesting to see how credit to both of them really, So seeing Monk and Barney be their kind of big roles after this and both kind of being the opposites for this show was really interesting. But with that in mind, congratulations to Stark Raving Mad, 5 out of 5, perfect score. You do live on to see episode 2 with us. I want to thank all of you guys for listening to week 1 of 5 this month. We have 5 Thursdays in the month of October this year to unofficially named Spooky Dookie October Halloween month. So thank you guys again. Go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all our links. Subscribe, do all that stuff. Talk to us. Follow us on socials. Buy a t-shirt. Do all that shit. But thank you. We'll catch you again next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best 72-degree angled Bigfoot penis.
Or the worst.
It could be both.